And now, the news. And I want to just start this by caveating that I know it's Tokyo Auto Salon at the moment and that there's a whole bunch of news coming out of that. But given how late it is in my editing cycle, I've decided I'm either going to make that a standalone video or I'm just going to let that roll over to next week's news. There's enough in there to make decent content from. And while I get that I'm brand new at this and my content's kind of shit anyway, I don't want to actively make it even worse by rushing through it, because there's some really cool things going on. And frankly, I'd rather give that adequate coverage, so at least I can say I did my best bad job as opposed to doing my worst bad job. So yeah, what we're going to do is this week we're going to stick to the news that's come out during the week, not actually the stuff at the weekend. And then Tokyo Auto Salon, like I said, it'll come out this week, or it'll come out during the upcoming week, or I'll just save it for the next news segment. I guess it depends. Yeah, with that, on with the news. Volkswagen have unveiled their latest generation of dashboard that will debut with the ID Polo. The design has been strongly influenced by customer feedback and can be seen immediately with physical buttons now back on the menu. Most of the important features like volume and climate control now use physical buttons, meaning less chance for a crash than when everything was on the screen. Lastly, another area of grievance has been addressed, with 4 window switches now returning, replacing the 2 window switches and a front or back switch silliness that have become standard in VWs. In an effort to make electric cars more quirky, or maybe just to confuse anyone under 25, VW have also added a cassette tape image to show the music currently being played on the center screen. Lastly, on the retro front, the digital gauges now hark back to VWs of the 80s and 90s, with a layout and style reminiscent of cars from that era. Response to this new design appears mostly positive, with many praising the return to rationality with physical buttons, and what on paper looks like a premium cabin in a car expected to start at €25,000. Personally, I'm in two minds with this. So let's start off with the negatives. I don't like the squared off steering wheel. This is a Polo, not a GT3 car. Meredith doesn't care about corner entry, she cares about getting to the games evening. And if she misgrabs the wheel because it's not the shape she's had for the last 50 years, she may never get to yell bingo again. Secondly, while I love the physical buttons, I do feel like the ones on the wheel look like something from a calculator. Compare this to the VWs of 10 years ago and you see my issue. They combined form with function to make a good looking wheel. This, by comparison, just seems a bit lazy and ugly. And the last point I'd like to raise before we get on to the good is the carpeted dashboard and doors. It looks like something from an 80s living room. And maybe that's intentional with trying to appeal to the nostalgia crowd, but it doesn't really do it for me. The other thing with this is, as a dog owner, I can see how hairy it's going to get, how muddy it's going to get, and how ripped it's going to get. And it's going to be a pain to clean, and it's going to be real expensive to repair. I really do feel like squidgy plastics were peak material for daily drivers. Now onto the good stuff. I don't think we can understate how good it is the company is listening to their customers. I know it should always be like that, but in 2026 the bar has never been lower for this sort of thing. The fact that we see a cabin that nails the important stuff, while despite my grievances doesn't objectively look ugly, I think earns VW a pat on the back. The integrated door handles look awesome as well. I do hope they're still mechanical and not electric, but even if not, very subtle, very classy. But for me, the big one are those retro gauges. I grew up in Mark 1 and Mark 2 Jettas and Golfs, so needless to say I've fallen straight into the carefully laid nostalgia trap that's been set out for me here. If there was a car to convince me to go EV, this would definitely be one that was doing the right kind of eye flattering. This alongside the Renault 5. However, I am a mechanic at heart. My dream is to build up an army of city Golfs and do all kinds of wacky things to them, one of which being convert one into an EV. And this Polo has given me a great idea. I need one of these that's been written off in a rear end smash so I can preserve the electric motors, most of the wiring, and this beautiful gauge screen. So here's the plan. I'm going to figure out the route Lance Stroll takes to work every morning. Then I'm going to find an ID Polo that parks along said route. I'll slap a big sticker on it that says Visa Cash App RB and then wait. Once he does what he does best, I'll buy the now written off Polo, and just like that, I have a donor car. Solid plan. So while the UK continues to allow the US free entry to the club, through the back door they're quietly letting the Chinese in and hoping no one with a Glock notices. The UK has been a crucial market for Tesla over the years, but that's all starting to change. A wave of Chinese vehicles have found their way into the country in the last few years, and now the latest one is on its way, the Xpeng P7 Plus. Xpeng actually launched with another car here, the G6. You'd be forgiven for missing it though, as there wasn't much fanfare around its introduction. Now, they're hoping to make a bigger splash with the P7 Plus, a vehicle aimed at the likes of the VW ID.7 and the Tesla Model 3. It looks like an Ioniq 6 that had a Brazilian butt lift, but despite this, it's aimed at families. Let's be honest though, this is aimed as much at Uber drivers as it is at families. With its large boot and focus on rear occupant space, it's perfect for getting you from A to B in adequate comfort while the driver blows through red lights and cuts off other motorists. The only criticism I have of the car is that it doesn't have a dedicated hazards button for the Uber driver market's consideration. It'll be offered with either a 61 kWh or 74 kWh battery, with ranges stretching from 311 to 341 miles on a charge. The top of the range version will have 500 horsepower and 670 Nm of torque. No word on pricing or launch date yet, but expected to start cutting you off in traffic later this year. Red Bull have taken the wraps off the final design for their RB17 hypercar. Top Gear magazine had the chance to sit down with Red Bull Advanced Technologies technical director to discuss the vehicle in detail. Although it was a passion project of Adrian Newey's, the legendary designer has moved on to greener pastures. You could say he swapped Horner's drool over female employees and Marco's drool from old age for the drool covering a certain driver's chin instead. Nevertheless, he's still on speed dial for this project, although the Red Bull team have gone to great lengths to point out that his involvement is minimal at most.
I matter!
Shut up, Meg, you don't matter.
The car is powered by a 4.5-litre V10 Cosworth engine that revs to 15,000 RPM and develops 1,000 horsepower. Its sound evokes a memory of an F1 era far in the rearview mirror, to a time before Drive to Survive or Team LH or safety standards. And speaking of the sound, let's pause to appreciate it. Now none of us can make drooling jokes because we're all drooling too. The car adds 200 more horsepower with an electric motor that also handles reversing, bringing the grand total to 1,200 horsepower. Combine that with over 1,700 kilos of fan-assisted downforce, and you have a car that moves pretty quickly in whatever direction you point it. No word on the weight of the car, but given it's effectively an F1 car that's allowed to swear, I'd be surprised if it cracked the 1-ton mark, even with batteries on board. 50 of these vehicles will be sold to the public, with production starting in Q2 of this year. No word on price, but firstly, if you're asking, then you can't afford it, and secondly, they're probably all found homes already anyway. I'm not going to go on a rant about how few will ever see the track, but let's be honest, we know how rare it'll be to see one of these, so if you do, make sure to appreciate it. When you think of Sony and cars, the only thing to come to mind is a hatchback rattling its license plate with bass. We're talking massive subwoofers, 6x9 speakers, head units with USB ports, or Bluetooth if you could afford it. Now though, Sony is making cars. They're in partnership with Honda, who will be making the vehicles in America. Given the country's reversal on EVs, one has to question this decision. But then given how long it takes to set up a manufacturing line, and given how quick policies change in the land of the dementia, I mean free, this was probably a rational decision at the time. Their latest concept has just been unveiled at CES, the Afeela prototype. It's an SUV that looks like a Range Rover Sport got decapitated and then had a Lucid Air's roof glued on. For the moment it's just a concept, so details are scant. The other vehicle though, the Afeela 1, is a saloon with similar copyright infringements that they plan on delivering to customers from later this year in the US and 2027 in Japan. Prices for the Afeela 1 start at $89,000, rising to $103,000 for the high-spec trim. The company has said that neither car in its lineup is expected to sell in large numbers as they're targeting a niche of customers who like tech and want an advanced vehicle. The question is, with the rate of change of car tech these days, how long will the car be advanced for? And how often will they need to bring out new models to keep their supposed niche interested? This doesn't sound like a recipe for success, but time will tell. Toyota's continuing to draw clearer lines between its vehicles and the type of customer that buys them. Currently, if you buy a Toyota, it could mean you like drifting, your chauffeur does all the driving, or you lose your car in a parking lot. Well, soon we'll be able to satisfy motoring pedants everywhere by being able to discriminate correctly based on what brand under the Toyota umbrella someone buys. With Lexus, Toyota, and Daihatsu already well established in the hierarchy, Toyota is removing confusion about its own models and sub-brands. Firstly, we had the Toyota Century, a luxury car from the upper class that only acknowledged its siblings at forced family gatherings. This has now been spun off into a luxury brand, aimed squarely at Rolls-Royce and Bentley, meaning it now gets to make its own family and not entertain the Toyota badge-wearing rabble anymore. And now with the posh prick out the room, Toyota has sought to find a new family for the wild child, the GR brand. GR stands for Gazoo Racing and is, as the name suggests, Toyota's racing-focused arm. This will be spun off into a standalone brand just called GR, and will handle the bulk of the performance vehicles under the Toyota umbrella. The GR GT Supercar was the first hint of this change, with the vehicle sporting no Toyota badges at all. Since then, there have been rumours circulating of a new MR2, a new Celica, and a new Supra, this time without any European influence. I would imagine the 86 and any future GR Yaris or Corolla variants would slot in under this badge too, giving us a similar concept to how Seat and Cupra work in Europe. The difference being GR will have bespoke models with the occasional, okay, we'll put some makeup on this one, dip into Toyota's model lineup. This assumption of mine isn't completely baseless, as Toyota have indicated that GR will cater more to customer motorsports using production vehicles. Given the Toyota CEO's love of racing, we're expecting big things from this brand. And now for It Just Slipped Out, where we look at this week's creative ways that manufacturers are punishing you for buying their products. Alfa Romeo Tonale models made from January to August of 2023 could suffer a brake pedal assembly failure when braking. Long story short, you could press the brake, it doesn't work, you rear-end the car in front of you. Being an Alfa, this might not be a failure so much as a design feature. Either way, please have it looked at. Hyundai Ioniq 6 models made from August 2022 to March 2025 could have their charging port panel fall off. Fairly minor compared to the other recalls on this list, but if it falls off at the wrong time, it could cause damage to cars behind you. It's like a deployable weapon, except you don't know when it's going to deploy. Another Hyundai on the list. i30 models made from December 2008 to February 2009 may have had grenades fitted instead of airbags. During airbag deployment, the driver's side inflator may not fully inflate. Because of this, it could also rupture part of the airbag or inflator and send these pieces flying into the cabin. So the thing that's supposed to save you during an accident may end up doing the opposite. Subaru Solterra models made from March 2022 to June 2025 may have a failure of the reverse camera. Simple and straightforward, get it fixed, or get used to having to turn your head when reversing like the good old days. And the last one for this week, Rivian is recalling nearly 20,000 R1S and R1T models that had a rear suspension service between April 2022 and March 2025. One of the parts may have been reassembled incorrectly. This could cause it to fall apart while driving and cause a crash. There are no warning signs either, so enjoy your anxiety while you wait for the owner notifications to come out, which will only be from the end of February. And that's the end of the news for this week.